My wife can't swim, but she spends hours staring into the lake. It's a simple sentence, but behind it lies a mystery so strange, so unsettling. It's been haunting me for months. Maybe, like me, you've found yourself wondering why someone would be drawn to something they clearly fear. How can a person who can't swim stand at the water's edge day after day, watching the lake with an intensity that almost feels like they're waiting for something or someone? What is it about that still, silent surface that pulls her in? If you've ever been curious about the secrets hiding beneath calm waters, or wondered what strange forces can grip a person's soul without explanation, then you're in the right place. Because today, I'm going to take you deep into the story. My story. The story of my wife, a woman who can't swim, yet can't seem to look away from the lake. By the time this video ends, you'll understand the answers I sought for so long, and maybe you'll see things in a way you never imagined. But first, I need you to listen closely, to stay with me through every twist and turn, because some truths don't reveal themselves all at once. They come slowly, like ripples across the water, and if you blink, you might miss the most important part. Let me start by telling you who we are. My wife, Emily, has always been cautious around water. She grew up terrified of swimming pools, of lakes, of the ocean, anything that threatened to pull her under. I used to think it was just a simple fear, like many of us have. But then one summer evening, everything changed. We moved to a quiet town in the Pacific Northwest, right near a large, beautiful lake surrounded by thick trees and a blanket of fog that often rolled in at dusk. It should have been the perfect place for a fresh start, a peaceful retreat from the noise of city life. Instead, it became the stage for something I couldn't explain. Almost every day, Emily would take our dog for a walk down to the lake's edge. She wouldn't swim, of course. She never did. But she'd sit or stand there for hours, staring across the water as if she was waiting for a message from beneath the surface. And no matter how many times I asked, or how much I begged her to come back inside, she wouldn't say why. She just remained silent, lost in that strange, faraway look. If you're watching this right now, you might be thinking, maybe she's just thinking. Maybe it's nothing. But what I discovered was anything but nothing. There was a hidden story behind those long hours staring at the lake, a story that shook our entire world and forced me to question everything I thought I knew about fear, love, and the unexplained. And while it's tempting to dismiss these moments as just odd behavior, the truth is, something was calling to Emily from that water, something neither of us could ignore. What makes this story even stranger is that I'm not just an observer. I'm a husband who loves his wife deeply, who's desperate to protect her, but who also feels helpless watching her drawn deeper into this mystery. If you've ever felt that mix of fear and love, of confusion and hope, then you'll understand why this story means so much to me and why I'm sharing it with you today. Because sometimes the scariest mysteries are the ones closest to home. And sometimes the answers only come when you're willing to look beyond the surface, beyond the obvious, and into the darkness that hides beneath. I want you to imagine standing there with me, the cool wind brushing your face, the soft sound of waves lapping against the shore, and the lake stretching out endlessly before you, calm yet strangely alive. Now imagine the person you love most who cannot swim, fixated on that vast, mysterious expanse for hours at a time. What would you feel? Confused? Worried? Frightened? That's exactly what I felt every single day. And yet, I couldn't pull her away, no matter how hard I tried. It was as if the lake had a hold on her soul, a secret it whispered only to her. What happened next is something I never could have predicted. Strange things began to happen. Things I'll reveal in the next parts of this story. But before I do, I need you to promise me one thing. Don't scroll away. This isn't just a story about fear or curiosity. It's about a mystery that challenges everything we think we know about the unknown, about the unseen forces that can shape our lives in ways we never imagine. Stick with me, and I'll show you the truth behind my wife's strange fixation on the lake. Together, we'll explore the chilling moments, the unanswered questions, and the unexpected twists that turned our peaceful life upside down. So, why can't she swim? but spends hours staring into the lake. What is she really looking for? And what secret does that lake hold that has kept us both trapped in a web of fear and wonder? Stay right here because the answers are coming. But be warned, once you hear them, you'll never see a quiet lake the same way again. And just when you think you've figured it out, something even darker will surface, leaving you questioning what's real and what's not. The next part of this story is coming up, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. Ever since we settled into our small lakeside town, life felt like it was shifting beneath my feet in ways I couldn't quite put my finger on. It wasn't just Emily's strange fixation on the water that unsettled me. It was everything around it, the quiet changes that crept in like shadows at dusk. At first, I tried to chalk it up to the stress of our move, the exhaustion of adjusting to a new job and a new neighborhood. But the more I watched, the more I realized there was something deeper at play. Emily had never been secretive with me before, yet now she kept slipping away at odd hours, often returning late with a vague excuse or no explanation at all. Our conversations grew shorter, her eyes carrying a distance I hadn't seen before. I tried to reach out, to ask what was wrong, but she always brushed me off with a gentle smile or a quick change of subject. It was during one of those long walks to the lake that I first noticed someone else. A man who appeared just as out of place as we were, always lurking near the water's edge, watching Emily with a quiet intensity that sent a chill down my spine. He never approached, never spoke, but his presence felt like a silent warning. Who was he, and why did he seem so fixated on my wife? I tried to talk to neighbors, hoping someone might know something about him, but the answers were vague and unhelpful, just whispers about a recluse who had lived by the lake for years, a man no one really trusted. I couldn't shake the feeling that this stranger was connected to whatever had taken hold of Emily, that he might be the key to unraveling the mystery I was desperate to solve. At the same time, there were other strange occurrences that didn't add up. Our dog, normally friendly and calm, started acting skittish around the lake, growling at invisible threats, pulling me away from places where Emily often stood. Lights flickered in the house during the night, and on more than one occasion, I thought I heard soft voices carried on the wind, voices that seemed to call Emily's name from across the water. Friends tried to reassure me, telling me it was all in my head, the stress making me see things that weren't there, but I knew better. Something was wrong, something we couldn't explain. Then there was the old journal I found tucked away in a drawer in Emily's room. Its pages yellowed and filled with cryptic entries about the lake, about memories she said she didn't remember having. She claimed she didn't know where the journal came from or why it was hers, but as I read deeper, the lines between past and present blurred. There were mentions of a tragedy, a lost love, and a promise made beneath the surface of that very lake. Was this some forgotten part of her history, or was it something else entirely, a warning, or even a plea for help? I wanted to confront her, to ask the questions that burned in my mind, but every time I tried, she slipped further away, as if afraid that the truth would destroy us both. Amid all this, there were neighbors who watched us with quiet suspicion, their smiles too tight, their eyes always lingering on Emily when she walked by. I couldn't tell if they pitied her or feared her, and that uncertainty only added to the growing tension. One afternoon, a package arrived at our door, unmarked and heavy, containing a faded photograph of the lake from decades ago and a single, chilling note. She knows. She waits. No signature, no explanation. I showed Emily, but she only glanced at it and then looked away, her face pale and unreadable. As the days passed, the layers of mystery thickened. Was Emily's obsession with the lake connected to something supernatural, or was it a manifestation of a trauma buried deep within her mind? Could that stranger be a threat, or perhaps a protector? Were the neighbors hiding secrets that tied back to the lake's dark history? Every question led to another, and every answer seemed to dissolve into more confusion. I was trapped in a puzzle with no clear solution, watching the woman I loved slip deeper into a world that defied reason. And all the while, the lake remained, silent, watchful, as if it held the key to everything but refused to share it. What was really waiting beneath its glassy surface? What was Emily hoping to find, or perhaps escape from. The truth was closer than I realized, but uncovering it would force us both to face shadows we never expected. This wasn't just a story about fear or curiosity anymore. It was a battle between what we knew and what lurked beyond understanding. And if you think this mystery is over, wait until you hear what happened next, because the twists yet to come will challenge everything you believe about love, loss, and the dark secrets that lie beneath a quiet lake. Just as I thought I was beginning to piece things together, the walls seemed to close in tighter, and the path to the truth became more tangled than ever before. One morning, I woke up to find the journal I'd discovered, the one filled with those cryptic entries about the lake and Emily's forgotten memories, was gone. It had vanished without a trace. I searched every corner of the house, asked Emily if she'd moved it or thrown it away, but she looked at me with a blankness that made me wonder if she even remembered it herself. The absence of that journal felt like a deliberate erasure, like someone or something didn't want me to see what was hidden within its pages. My heart sank. If I couldn't hold on to the clues, how could I unravel the story that was slowly consuming our lives? Around the same time, an unexpected visitor showed up at our doorstep, an old man from the neighborhood, someone I hadn't met before. He claimed to know about the lake's history and warned me to stop digging into things better left alone. His eyes were sharp, his voice low and urgent, and the way he spoke made it clear he wasn't just offering friendly advice. There was an edge of menace beneath his words, a silent threat that lingered long after he left. He told me the lake held secrets that had cost many people dearly, that some mysteries carried a price too high to pay. I wanted to ask more, but he disappeared into the fog as suddenly as he'd arrived, leaving me with nothing but his warning echoing in my mind. It was the kind of moment that makes you question whether you're being watched, whether the friendly faces around you hide darker intentions. And then there was Sarah, a woman who had recently moved into the house next door. At first, she seemed like a helpful neighbor, offering a warm smile, bringing over cookies, even sharing stories about the town's history. But the more I spoke with her, the more I sensed something off. She asked questions about Emily's past, about our move, and about the lake with a curiosity that felt invasive. There were times when I caught her glancing toward our house, or lingering near the lake's edge, when no one else was around. I wanted to trust her, but a small voice in the back of my mind whispered that she wasn't who she seemed to be. Was she a friend? Or was she another piece in this strange puzzle? And why did she appear just as things began to spiral out of control? Then, late one night, Emily came to me with a look I hadn't seen before, a mixture of fear and resignation. She told me about a secret from her past, a betrayal that had been buried deep but was now rising to the surface. Years ago, before we met, she had been involved in something she never wanted to remember, a promise broken, a trust shattered, something that tied back to this very lake. She wouldn't say more, only that the lake held the memories she tried to forget, and that coming here had brought them all rushing back in ways she couldn't control. Hearing this shook me to my core because it meant this wasn't just about a fear of water or a strange obsession. It was about something darker, something that threatened to unravel not just our lives, but everything Emily had tried to leave behind. Just as I began to process her confession, another blow hit. Our home was broken into. Nothing was stolen except for a small, locked box I had hidden away, a box filled with photos, letters, and little pieces of evidence I'd collected, hoping to understand what was happening to Emily. Whoever had come into our house knew exactly what to take, and that sent a clear message: stop looking, stop asking, or face the consequences. I wanted to be angry, to fight back, but the fear creeping into every corner of our lives was almost suffocating. Was this the work of the strange man who had warned me? Was Sarah involved? Or was there someone else lurking, pulling strings from the shadows? The tension built to a breaking point when Emily vanished for hours one evening. I found her standing at the lake again, staring into the water as if waiting for a sign. She didn't say a word when I approached, only handed me a soaked, torn piece of paper with a name written on it, a name I had never heard before, but one that felt heavy with meaning. Before I could ask what it meant, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the mist. That night, the lake seemed to whisper secrets I couldn't understand, and I realized we were caught in a story much bigger than us, one filled with shadows, lies, and betrayals that threatened to consume everything. So now, here we are, trapped between the surface and the depths, between what is known and what remains hidden. The journal is gone, the warnings are clear, the allies questionable, and the past bleeding into the present with consequences none of us are prepared for. What does that name mean? Who is really watching us from the shadows? And will I be able to uncover the truth before it's too late? The answers you're waiting for are coming, but trust me, when you finally see what lies beneath, you'll never look at a quiet lake the same way again. Just when I thought the storm around us couldn't grow any darker, something happened that turned the entire mystery inside out and forced me to question everything I thought I knew, not just about Emily, but about the people closest to us. It started with a phone call late one evening from my brother, Mark. He sounded shaken, his voice low and urgent, and when I asked what was wrong, he hesitated before saying something that stopped me cold. He had received a strange package, exactly like the one we'd gotten at our door. Inside, there was an old photograph of the lake, faded and weathered by time, and a note scrawled with the same chilling phrase. She knows. She waits. The eeriness of the message alone was enough to send chills down my spine, but it was the fact that Mark lived 3 states away, miles from any lake, that made it all the more unsettling. How could this shadow that haunted us reach across such distance? What was it trying to tell us, and why? The call was followed by a barrage of questions that I hadn't been ready to face. Mark was no stranger to tough situations, but this had rattled him deeply. He told me he had no idea who might be behind the package or why he was being drawn into this nightmare. Yet, the timing felt too coincidental to ignore. Could someone else connected to Emily be caught up in this too? And if so, what did that mean for the secrets we were uncovering? It felt like the lake's dark grip was extending far beyond the quiet shores of our town, reaching into corners of our past we hadn't even begun to explore. Around that same time, I stumbled across a new piece of evidence that threw everything we believed into question. While rifling through some old boxes in the attic, I found a series of letters, handwritten and folded carefully, but dated years before we had even met Emily. The letters were addressed to her, but the handwriting didn't match hers or anyone we knew. They spoke of a promise, a betrayal, and a warning to stay away from the lake. What shocked me most was that these letters contradicted some of the journal entries I had read earlier. The story they told was different, darker, and suggested that Emily had been hiding more than just fear of water. It hinted at a connection to a past event that involved someone she once trusted deeply, and someone who had broken that trust in the worst possible way. Suddenly, the pieces of the puzzle didn't fit neatly anymore. They were jagged, confusing, and raised more questions than answers. In the middle of all this uncertainty, I found myself doubting those around me more than ever. Sarah, the neighbor I once thought might be an ally, began acting even more strangely. One afternoon, I caught her sneaking around near the lake with a small camera, snapping pictures of Emily when she wasn't looking. When I confronted her, she laughed it off, claiming it was just idle curiosity, but the unease in her eyes told a different story. Was she spying for someone? Was she connected to the strange warnings and threats? Or was she herself a pawn in a game far beyond what I could understand? Even Emily wasn't immune to the shadows creeping into our lives. She started having nightmares, visions of drowning, of voices calling her beneath the water, and of faces from her past that refused to let go. The Emily I knew seemed to slip further away with each passing day, replaced by someone haunted and fragile. Yet, amidst all this turmoil, she clung fiercely to the lake, as if it was the only thing tethering her to a truth she desperately needed to uncover. The stakes felt higher than ever before. What started as a quiet obsession had exploded into a tangled web of secrets, betrayals, and threats that stretched across miles and years. I found myself questioning everyone's motives. Was my wife hiding something from me? Was my brother's involvement a coincidence or a sign of something more sinister? Could the neighbor really be trusted? And who was orchestrating the warnings that seemed designed to stop us from finding out what lay beneath the lake's surface? As the pieces shifted unpredictably, The line between friend and foe blurred until it almost disappeared. I was left standing on the edge of a mystery that refused to be solved easily, caught in a storm of doubt, fear, and unanswered questions. The lake, once just a quiet backdrop to our lives, had become a living, breathing enigma that demanded to be understood. But at what cost? And more importantly, how far was I willing to go to uncover the truth when every step forward threatened to pull me deeper into a darkness I might never escape? The night it all took a darker turn is etched into my memory like a shadow I can't shake. I had been tossing and turning for hours, the weight of everything pressing down harder than ever before. The calls from Mark, the missing journal, the strange neighbor, the cryptic notes. It was like living in a nightmare that kept tightening its grip with every passing day. Then, as if the universe decided to pull me deeper into the abyss, I noticed the feeling I'd been brushing off for weeks was real. I was being followed. At first, it was subtle. Faint footsteps behind me on quiet streets, a glimpse of a dark figure lingering near our house, cars that slowed down whenever I passed. But the unease grew into something unmistakable, a cold certainty that someone was watching my every move, waiting for me to make a mistake. The paranoia seeped into my mind, twisting every sound, every shadow into a threat. I found myself jumping at every creak, every whisper of wind, unable to tell if it was real or just my mind unraveling under the strain. The next morning brought a crushing blow that shattered whatever fragile sense of safety I had left. Emily was gone. Not just out for a walk or lost in the lake's gaze. She had vanished without a trace. Her bed was untouched, her phone silent, and the note she left behind wasn't one of comfort, but of warning. It was scribbled in her shaky handwriting and simply said, "Don't look for me." Those words cut through me like a blade. I was terrified, but even more than that, I was furious. Who had taken her? Was it the strange man, Sarah, or someone even darker lurking just out of sight? The questions flooded my mind, but the answers were nowhere to be found. The police searched, neighbors whispered, but I knew this wasn't a simple disappearance. It was tied to the lake, to the secrets we'd barely begun to uncover, and to a danger I had underestimated. The silence that followed was suffocating. Every minute without her felt like a lifetime, and the fear clawed at my chest with relentless intensity. I kept replaying our last conversations, searching for clues in her words or in the look in her eyes, but all I found was a growing sense of dread. The realization hit me hard. This wasn't just about Emily's past or some forgotten promise. It was about survival. Whoever was behind this wanted to control the story, to keep the truth buried beneath the calm surface of the lake and the quiet town we thought we knew. And now they had sent a clear message. I was next if I didn't stop digging. The nights grew longer, haunted by dreams of drowning and shadowy figures emerging from the water, calling my name with voices that felt both familiar and terrifying. I became a prisoner of my own mind, caught between hope and despair, unable to trust anyone, not even myself. Every friendly smile felt like a mask hiding a secret, every shadow a lurking threat. The isolation was crushing, but the need to find Emily and to uncover the truth was a fire that refused to die out. I was caught in a game I didn't want to play but couldn't walk away from, and with every passing hour, the stakes grew higher. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, a message arrived. This time, it wasn't hidden in a box or a letter. It came through a text on my phone, a simple image that made my blood run cold. A photo of Emily, bound and silent, standing at the edge of the lake, eyes wide with fear. The caption beneath was chilling in its brevity. Last chance. It was a threat, a warning, and a heartbreaking plea all rolled into one. The line between love and terror blurred, and I realized that the only way out was to face whatever darkness was waiting beneath the surface, no matter the cost. So here I am, sharing this with you, because I need you to understand just how real this is, how urgent, and how dangerous. This isn't just a story. It's a nightmare unfolding in real time, and every step closer to the truth could be our last. I'm standing on the edge of something I can't see clearly yet, but I know one thing for sure. The lake holds more than memories, and the people around me, friends, neighbors, even family, might not be who they say they are. The only question now is, can I find Emily before it's too late? And when the shadows close in, who will be left standing to tell the tale? For weeks, I'd been chasing shadows, haunted by fears that seemed to come from nowhere but felt all too real. And just when I thought the pieces were falling into place, the ground shifted beneath me in a way I never saw coming. It wasn't a new clue or some sudden revelation about the lake or the mysterious messages. It was something far more personal, something that shattered the very foundation of trust one had built around me. One evening, as the weight of the silence in our empty house pressed down like a storm, I found a message waiting on my phone. Not a threat, not a warning, but a voice recording from Emily herself. Her voice was faint, trembling, but unmistakably hers, and as I pressed play, everything I thought I knew came undone. She confessed something I never expected, that this whole ordeal, the notes, the stranger, even her fixation on the lake, was part of a plan she'd been involved in long before I met her. It was a secret she'd kept hidden, a secret that connected her not just to the lake, but to a shadowy network operating far beyond our quiet town, and she had been trying to protect me from it. My mind reeled as I listened to her explain that the lake wasn't just a place of personal memories or trauma, but a meeting point, a symbol for something much darker and more complex. The strange messages, the warnings, the disappearances, they were all part of a bigger game, one involving people who had their own hidden agendas and were willing to manipulate those closest to me. And then came the hardest part. She revealed that Sarah, the neighbor who had seemed so helpful and friendly, wasn't who she claimed to be. Sarah had been placed there deliberately, watching, reporting, and influencing events in ways I'd never suspected. Emily's message ended with a plea: trust no one, especially those who seem the most trustworthy, because betrayal could come from where you least expect it. Suddenly, the pieces I'd been obsessing over, the strange man by the lake, the disappearing journal, the threatening notes, all took on a new meaning. They weren't random or supernatural. They were calculated moves in a dangerous game, and I was smack in the middle of it without even realizing it. The very people I'd been counting on to help were part of the web, and every question I'd asked only tightened the noose. I was forced to ask myself, how much of Emily's past was real, and how much was designed to protect me? Was she a victim, a conspirator, or something in between? And most chillingly, who could I turn to when the people around me had hidden faces and hidden motives? That night, I understood that the mystery wasn't just about a missing wife or a haunted lake. It was about deception, manipulation, and survival in a world where truth was a luxury no one could afford. The calm surface of the lake mirrored the facade of normalcy in our lives, but beneath it, currents pulled in directions I couldn't control or predict. And now, with Emily's voice as both a warning and a guide, I had to navigate a path through lies and shadows, knowing that every step could bring me closer to answers, or to danger I couldn't escape. If you've been following this story, if you've felt the fear and confusion alongside me, know this: what you think you know isn't the full picture. The truth is darker, more tangled, and far more dangerous than anyone could imagine. The lake isn't just a place of secrets. It's a symbol of the lies we tell ourselves to survive. And as I stand on the edge of this abyss, the only certainty is that nothing is as it seems, and the real story has only just begun. With Emily's voice echoing in my head, warning me to trust no one and revealing betrayals I hadn't imagined, I found myself trapped in a web of impossible choices that threatened to unravel everything I held dear. The realization that Sarah, the neighbor I once thought was a friend, was actually a pawn in a game far darker than I understood left me reeling, but confronting her meant risking everything. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was watching me even now, waiting for a moment when I would slip up or break. The house no longer felt like a sanctuary. Every creak in the night and every unexpected knock at the door was a reminder that the danger wasn't some distant threat but something breathing down my neck. I wrestled with the question of whether to face her, to demand answers, or to step back and protect what little safety I had left. The stakes were no longer just about uncovering the truth. They were about survival. Then came the ultimatum that crushed whatever hope I had of an easy path forward. Late one night, an anonymous message appeared on my phone, a video that froze me in place. It showed Emily, her face pale and eyes wide with fear, pleading silently for help. The message that followed was clear and merciless. Stop searching, walk away from the lake and everything connected to it, or Emily would disappear forever. No amount of love or desperation could erase the terror in that threat. I was forced to choose between my own safety and the chance to save the person I loved more than anything in the world. To turn away meant abandoning her to an unknown fate. To keep pushing risked everything: my life, my sanity, the fragile bonds that held us together. The emotional weight of that choice was crushing. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide, to protect myself from a shadow that seemed impossible to fight. But how could I, knowing Emily was out there somewhere, trapped and terrified because of me? The loneliness of that decision was suffocating, and the nights became battles between hope and fear, courage and self-preservation. I felt myself slipping into a paranoia that gnawed at the edges of my mind, wondering if the people around me, the neighbors, Mark, even the friends I once trusted, were part of the sinister game or just innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire. Could I tell the difference anymore? Was anyone truly on my side? Facing Sarah became inevitable. When I finally confronted her, the encounter was nothing like I expected. Her calmness, her cold, unreadable eyes, and the cryptic words she spoke only deepened the mystery. She hinted at truths too dangerous to reveal, secrets that went far beyond the lake and into realms I wasn't prepared to enter. She warned me that some truths come with a price so high it might be better to live in ignorance. But ignorance was no longer an option, not when Emily's life hung in the balance. The conversation left me with more questions than answers and a chilling sense that the real puppeteers were still hidden, pulling strings from the shadows. Every day since then has been a struggle against the unknown, a test of endurance in a game where the rules keep changing and the players keep shifting. I'm caught between wanting to believe there's a way out and knowing that every step forward might lead me deeper into danger. The weight of that impossible choice between protecting myself or risking everything for the truth presses down like a storm I can't escape. And as I stand here, facing the lake that holds so many secrets, I realize that this isn't just a story about a missing wife or a haunted place. It's about how far we're willing to go when the people we love become the center of a mystery darker than we ever imagined. If you're still with me, know that the path ahead is treacherous and filled with uncertainty. The choices I make now won't just determine my fate. They'll decide whether Emily's voice is silenced forever or if the truth will finally surface from beneath the still waters. The next steps are coming, and with them, the stakes will only grow higher. But remember, in a story like this, sometimes the hardest battles are fought in the shadows we can't see, and the real enemy might be closer than we think. The moment everything exploded was like a wave crashing over me, sweeping away every shred of certainty I'd clung to. What started as a strange obsession with a lake and a missing wife had ballooned into something so vast, so deeply rooted, that I realized I wasn't just fighting for Emily. I was caught in the center of a sprawling conspiracy that reached far beyond our quiet town. The pieces I'd gathered, cryptic notes, shadowy figures, and betrayals, were threads in a web that tangled dozens of people, some of whom I'd trusted without question. The calm surface had masked a storm, and I was smack in the eye of it, with nowhere left to run. The betrayal came from the last place I ever expected. Mark, my brother, my blood, revealed himself as part of the hidden forces trying to keep the truth buried. When I confronted him, the coldness in his eyes shattered the last illusions I had. He wasn't just a bystander caught in this nightmare. He was a player, weaving deception and feeding information to people who thrived on control and silence. The message he delivered was brutal. Stop digging, or we both lose everything. The weight of those words crushed me, not just because of the threat, but because of the brother I realized I didn't really know. Every memory, every shared moment now felt like a lie carefully crafted to keep me blind. But the conspiracy didn't stop there. I uncovered that several community leaders, Trusted neighbors, local officials, even some friends, were tangled in this shadow network. They had a vested interest in keeping the lake's secrets safe, secrets tied to power, money, and long-buried crimes that could ruin lives if exposed. The threat to Emily, to me, and to anyone who dared ask questions wasn't just random cruelty. It was a calculated effort to maintain a fragile, sinister balance. People were disappearing, silenced, or scared into submission, and I was fast becoming their next target. The pressure was suffocating, the danger palpable. Every step I took felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of unknown horrors, every glance over my shoulder reminding me that eyes were watching, waiting for me to slip. The frantic urgency of knowing Emily's life hung in the balance drove me to take risks I never imagined I could. I couldn't trust the police, the neighbors, or even some family. My isolation deepened, but so did my resolve. If I didn't act now, if I didn't unravel this twisted network, Emily might never see daylight again, and the truth would sink beneath the lake forever. As I dug deeper, new faces appeared, some allies, some enemies disguised in friends' clothing, and the lines blurred even more. The lake wasn't just a place. It was a symbol of the lies, betrayals, and hidden agendas that fueled this entire operation. The stakes skyrocketed, and every revelation peeled back layers of deception, so thick it was hard to breathe. The pressure to expose the truth before it was too late was crushing, and the stakes had never felt higher. Every heartbeat carried the weight of fear and hope intertwined, and the urgency to find Emily, to bring the conspirators to justice, pushed me forward despite the odds. Now, standing on the brink of this storm, I realize this story isn't just about one missing woman or a quiet lake. It's a battle against a force that will stop at nothing to protect its secrets. The fight ahead is brutal and unforgiving, and with every moment, the danger grows. But giving up isn't an option, because the truth, no matter how dark, deserves to surface. And I'm ready to face whatever comes next, even if it means risking everything. The night the truth finally surfaced, the air was thick with tension, every shadow around the lake seeming to hold its breath, as if waiting for what was about to unfold. I knew I was walking into a trap, but the fire to save Emily and expose the darkness that had gripped our lives pushed me forward. The messages, the betrayals, the warnings, they all led here, to the edge of the water where secrets had been buried for far too long. I wasn't just confronting a person or a lie anymore. I was facing an entire web of deception that had held this town hostage for decades. As I approached the old boathouse, the only sound was the soft lapping of water against the dock. The moonlight painted everything in a ghostly glow, and I could feel eyes watching me from the trees, from the shadows where trust had long since died. Then, the figure emerged, calm, collected, with a chilling smile that held all the arrogance of someone who believed they were untouchable. It was Sarah, the friendly neighbor who had slipped so seamlessly into our lives, who had smiled at Emily, who had watched me with those unreadable eyes. She wasn't just a spy or a pawn. She was the mastermind, the one pulling strings, the force behind the threats, the disappearances, and the lies. The betrayal cut deeper than any blade, twisting a knife of disbelief and fury in my chest. She spoke slowly, revealing a history I never imagined. The lake had been a silent witness to crimes hidden under the guise of respectability, a history of corruption, greed, and power that reached into the highest echelons of our community. Emily's obsession, the threats, my brother's betrayal, they were all threads woven into a tapestry designed to keep the truth locked away, to protect those who had profited from silence. Sarah confessed that Emily's disappearance was a calculated move, meant to silence a woman who had started to unravel the conspiracy, and that I was the final piece to be eliminated or recruited. The choice was mine: walk away forever or become part of the darkness. The weight of the ultimatum crushed me, but I knew there was no turning back. Suddenly, the tension exploded into chaos. I lunged forward, desperate to stop her, but she was ready, slipping away into the darkness with a speed that betrayed years of training and calculation. The chase led us to the water's edge, where the final secret waited beneath the surface. In the murky depths of the lake, I saw a flash, a small, waterproof case that had been dropped, containing the evidence Emily had hidden, recordings, documents, proof of a conspiracy that could topple empires. My heart pounded as I grabbed it, feeling the weight of truth in my hands, but before I could celebrate, a new figure stepped out from the shadows. It was Mark, the brother I had thought was my enemy, but now he stood between me and escape, his face torn with conflict. He whispered that he had been forced into his role, that the network had threats on his own family, and that he wanted to help, but the clock was ticking. In those moments, the line between friend and foe blurred into nothingness. Trust was a currency too costly to spend lightly. The water lapped at our feet, and the sky cracked with distant thunder, mirroring the storm raging inside me. The choice was clear: expose the truth with Mark's help, risking everything, or surrender to the darkness and lose Emily forever. With a surge of desperation, I grabbed Mark's hand, and together we made a break for it, the secrets clutched tightly, the future uncertain. But just when I thought the nightmare was ending, the last twist hit like a thunderclap. The evidence wasn't just proof of corruption. It revealed that Emily had been playing both sides all along. Her silence, her fear, her disappearance, they were part of a plan to protect someone even more powerful, someone who had been manipulating us all from the very beginning. The real puppeteer wasn't Sarah, wasn't Mark, but someone so close to me I never suspected. The truth was darker, more twisted, and far more dangerous than I could have ever imagined. As the lake's surface rippled under the stormy sky, I realized the battle was far from over. The shadows would keep shifting, the lies would keep deepening, and the fight for Emily, and for the truth, was just beginning. And now, with everything laid bare, I had to ask myself, who could I really trust when the enemy might be looking back from the mirror? The days that followed the storm felt like walking through a fog I couldn't quite escape. Each step weighted with the echoes of what had happened and the knowledge that some truths refused to settle quietly. Emily was found, not in the freedom I had desperately hoped for, but in a place far from the lake's edge, her eyes clouded with a haunting emptiness that spoke of battles fought in silence and shadows. The evidence Mark and I secured shattered the conspiracy's public face, bringing down those who had ruled behind closed doors, but it couldn't erase the scars left on our lives or the deeper darkness that lingered beneath the surface. Justice had been served in the courts, but the emotional wounds ran far deeper, twisting through the fabric of trust, love, and betrayal that had defined our story. In the quiet moments, away from the chaos, I found myself returning to the lake, its still waters now a mirror reflecting not just the past, but the uncertain future. Emily's fixation on that place had never been about fear alone. It was a tether to memories too painful to fully face, but too important to forget. We began the slow, fragile process of healing, rebuilding what had been broken piece by piece, even as the mystery that once consumed us continued to pulse beneath the calm surface like a heartbeat waiting to be heard. Some questions were answered, the faces of deception revealed, the webs unraveled, but others remained deliberately obscured, reminders that in every story, some shadows are meant to stay. The people we thought we knew were changed forever, their secrets laid bare, yet some parts forever locked away in silence. Mark's role was complicated, a reflection of the impossible choices forced on those caught between loyalty and survival. Sarah vanished as mysteriously as she had arrived, a ghost in the narrative whose motives might never be fully understood. And Emily, though present, carried within her a part of that mystery, a quiet strength forged from pain and resilience that reminded me how complicated love and truth could be. As the seasons shifted, I realized that peace wasn't found in uncovering every secret or exposing every lie. It was found in acceptance, in the willingness to live with the unknown, and in the courage to face the future despite the scars. The lake remained a place of reflection, a symbol of the depths within all of us that hold both darkness and light, truth and mystery. And while the story that began with a wife who couldn't swim but spent hours staring into the lake had come to an end, its ripples would continue to spread, touching lives in ways unseen and reminding me that some mysteries don't need solving, they need understanding. So, as you watch this, know that the answers you seek might not be as simple as they seem, and sometimes the most powerful truths lie not in what is revealed, but in what remains just out of reach. The lake's surface is still calm, but beneath it, the story lives on, a silent whisper waiting for those brave enough to listen. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. Remember, not every mystery ends with a clear resolution, but every story leaves a mark that lasts long after the final page is turned.